Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As we begin our services here this morning or this afternoon, we would kindly ask everyone just to please turn off or silence all electronic devices. We are gathered here today to honor the life and legacy of Cheryl Pliskin. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us to celebrate her life. She has undoubtedly impacted all of you in a unique way, and I'd like to begin by offering some words that speak to what most of you are probably feeling when you think about her. The first is a poem entitled "The Precious Gift." One gift above all others God gives us to treasure, one that knows no time, no place, and one that gold cannot measure. The precious, poignant, tender gift of memory that will keep our dear ones ever in our hearts, although God gives them sleep. It brings back long remembered things, a song, a word, a smile, and our world's a better place because we had Cheryl for a while. This next one speaks to the immeasurable love that she filled all of your lives with, and no doubt also the void that's left behind by her loss. It's entitled, "How Deep is the Ocean?" How can I tell you what is in my heart? How can I measure each and every part? How can I tell you how much I love you? How can I measure just how much I do? How much do I love you? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? How many times a day do I think of you? How many roses are sprinkled with dew? How far would I travel to be where you are? How far is the journey from here to a star? And if I ever lost you, how much would I cry? How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? The Jews are an ancient people who are well accustomed to pain and grief. And at times like these, the Psalms can bring us a sense of comfort. So in that spirit, I'd like to read a few now. This is Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keeps Israel doth neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall guard thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, both now and forever. And Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And finally, from the book of Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to keep and a time to discard. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. And at this time, we're going to invite up some family and friends to speak and share some of their memories about Cheryl. And first, we're going to ask Carson, Cheryl's granddaughter, to come up and share some of her memories.
Woof Woof was always so wonderful. She always kept her promises. She always would help me. She was always so happy to see me. She always would hug me. She always helped me with hard things. She always gave me kisses. I will always love her.
Thank you, Carson. That was beautiful. Next, I'm going to ask Debbie Noon to come up and share some of her thoughts. And Debbie, from what I understand, was good friends with Cheryl through the Be Like the Henry organization.
It was an honor to be Cheryl's friend. One of the things I loved about Cheryl and laughed at all the time was her love of alliterations. She would get so excited if she could suddenly rhyme something. So to go with Cheryl, we've got caring, considerate, cordial, concerned, comforting, charitable, but most of all compassionate. Cheryl truly cared about others. It was this caring nature that led her to found Be Like Henry. I asked her once, what motivated you? You're going to retire, take it easy. Why start this whole new thing? And she said, I want to help people, and their pets, of course, and I want to use someone else's money. I thought, that's a great idea, I like that. And she did, obviously. Be Like Henry has donated over 560,000 pounds of dog food across the country. The Planner Project alone will add another 8,000 to that total. Be Like Henry has also donated countless other items, including funding a kennel at a domestic violence shelter, cold lasers for dogs in pain, incubators for bottle puppies, and more. Cheryl touched so many. She will be surely missed. She was a wonderful, loving, vibrant, unique woman who has left her mark on all of us in the world. May we all strive to be like Cheryl.
Thank you, Debbie. I'd next like to invite up Dave Sutton. And Dave is a member of the Neighborhood Watch, I'm being told.
So I represent a portion of the neighborhood. Those that live closest to Cheryl were kind of like the people that were closest to her in the neighborhood. But when I say neighborhood, all of Devonshire Village, the whole development, knew of Cheryl, may not know her by name, may not know the names of her dogs, but every day she would walk the whole development. My wife Robin and I moved across the street from Cheryl over 30 years ago now. So when I first got there, I was 39 or 33, and she was 39, I think. She was one of the first, if not the first, to welcome us to the neighborhood. At that time, Cheryl was fostering various dogs. They were all with human names, interestingly, because she was very much focused on dogs and not so much on people at that time. It might have changed over time. Ultimately, some of them became seeing eye dogs. So when we had first moved there, she was involved in training seeing eye dogs. Eventually, she rescued her soulmate, Henry. And I recall her telling me, Henry is a keeper. She fostered quite a few dogs, but Henry was definitely a keeper in her mind. Gabby followed sometime later, and the three of them became inseparable. We soon developed a somewhat mutual dependence on each other in the reciprocal care of our dogs. We reciprocated when we could, but she came to our aid many more times than we to hers. Initially, we had a 150-pound Great Dane / horse named Tank, who we unfortunately had to put down after only about 3 years. And about 6 months or so later, despite Rob and I coming to agreement that no more dogs for foreseeable future, 6 months later, we rescued an American Staffordshire Terrier named Nellie. Nellie was with us for about 17 years, and Cheryl, over those years, helped us with her. And when we were on vacation, she collected our mail and so on, and took in about 100 Amazon deliveries so they wouldn't get taken by porch thieves. We also turned to her frequently for doggy advice and guidance, in addition to YouTube, but she was first. Perhaps her most important role, though, was keeping her neighbors abreast of the goings-on in the neighborhood. Cheryl was always the local town crier and had her thumb on the pulse of the neighborhood. If a police car or ambulance showed up somewhere in the hood, someone moved into the neighborhood, Cheryl had the scoop. In July of last year, the neighborhood had a brief rash of car thefts. So we formulated a group text chain called the Boothby Drive Watch, and Cheryl began to refer herself aptly as the Neighborhood Town Watch Commander of Devonshire Village. Cheryl, Henry, and Gabby were a constant fixture seen and known throughout Devonshire Village, perhaps not, as I said, not by name, but by sight through their daily walks together. Cheryl was also blessed, some of you know, with the gift of gab, and we say that with affection. Just last week, Robin and I were out walking and came upon Cheryl introducing herself, Carson, Gabby, and Henry to some fairly new neighbors. It was always good to run into Cheryl, except perhaps when you were in a rush and you didn't want to cut her off, you know, so try to be cordial and step away gradually. She'll leave a very large empty space in the development of Devonshire. Her, Henry, and Gabby's presence will be greatly missed. We are so fortunate to have known her and been a small part of her life, and so grateful for the help she provided to us and so many others throughout the years. I like to think that Cheryl is now in a better place, and she has transitioned from this life, crossed the Rainbow Bridge, which some of you may have heard of, and was greeted and welcomed by many grateful and appreciative dogs and other animals. May she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I'd like to read a poem entitled, We Remember Them. At the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. For as long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of all of us as we remember Cheryl. And I'd like to invite up Laura Mader. She's going to speak next. And from what I understand, you know Cheryl through Big Fluff Dog Rescue? Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to start this out with a quote from Cheryl from when she roasted her sister Ellen at Ellen's wedding. You can all put your glasses down and get comfortable, because we're going to be here a while. Because how else do you sum up someone so big and dynamic, someone who could seemingly accomplish anything, a person with so much personality and whom so many people loved and admired, in such a short speech? I really don't know how, but I'm going to do my best to try. And to keep you all on your toes, as Cheryl would want, we'll see if it ends up being a toast or a roast. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Laura. I met Cheryl in 2016 when my husband and I adopted her foster dog, Zoe. When we drove away from that adoption event, I texted her updates on how Zoe was doing. In fact, Zoe's birthday was 4 days later, and we threw her a little party, complete with party hats. And that was it for Cheryl. We were instant friends. I was drawn to Cheryl because I truly felt seen when I was with her. She just got me. I didn't have to pretend to be something I wasn't. One of the ways she got me was she knew I wasn't a morning person, so if we were on the road early, she wouldn't start talking or having any big conversations with me until I had had my coffee. She would say, "Oh, I forgot. No talking. We'll get you a coffee." She bought me a t-shirt that said, "A good thing to do in the morning is not talk to me." In the early days, we saw each other every month or so for a couple of years, which was a big deal because I live in Massachusetts. But we made a lot of excuses to get together. She was deep into dog rescue and took on coordinating adoption events and fundraising for Big Fluffy. She hosted her foster friends at her house for little get-togethers. She lovingly called it Pliskin Plaza, and everyone had a place to stay. I would come to New Jersey to help at the adoption events, and then she would come to Massachusetts, and I would dog sit Henry and Gabby while she went to her yearly get-togethers with her college friends down the Cape. Sometimes we met in the middle, like at Woof Fest in Connecticut, or we took a trip somewhere, like an Airbnb in Vermont. She took Nick and I to Middlebury, and I took her and our dogs to one of my favorite Vermont state parks. She would call when she was on the road, and we'd talk for hours about what was going on with each other. I tell her about my kids, ask for advice on how to handle something with the dogs. And she told me about this thing she was going to do. She called it retiring, which sounded a lot like running a nonprofit. Her goal for Be Like Henry was simple, to help dogs and their people, and she found the most creative ways to do it. I know she had so much left she wanted to do, so many more accomplishments she would have made. Cheryl and I drove to Tennessee twice together, there and back. It's a 12-hour trip. I will do the math for you. That is 48 whole hours in a car with Cheryl. And like Dave said, she had the gift of gab. And that's when I learned the most about her. Not just her accomplishments with work or Big Fluffy. She had many, but the real essence of who she was and what was most important to her. Mainly her family. She doted on her kids, and she was so proud of both of them. I don't remember the exact details, but at the time, Stacy was relatively new to Colorado, and she was stunned at how brave she was that she would pick up and move out to a new place all on her own. She was proud she had the guts to do it and to make it work. And of course, she was, to use one of Cheryl's words, exceedingly proud of Craig's accomplishments, especially when he was named principal at his new school. She beamed with pride telling me about both of them. And on one of our trips, Cheryl got the call that Courtney was pregnant, and she spent the rest of the trip just lit up, overjoyed at the idea of becoming a grandma. She told me about Joel and Donna, especially glad that they adopted Barney and Danny before they moved to Florida, and she was elated for Ellen when she and Jerry got married. She thought her toaster roast line was so clever. She called me about that one. She brought me to John's restaurant in D.C., and never forgot to honor her nephew Pete. She talked about her college roommates, friends from Big Fluffy, her neighbors, people she knew through networking at Just Notes and Baskets. I feel like I know so many of you, even though we've never met before today. And many of you are probably thinking, "Oh, that's so nice." She talked about all the people she loved. And then there's a good amount of you who are probably scared, frankly, because you know Cheryl liked to tell tales, and you're probably thinking, "Oh man, what embarrassing story did she tell about me?" And let me reassure you, every funny story or joke or anecdote was told with love. She once told me, "I won't ask this of Craig and Courtney, but I'll ask you, when are you having a baby?" That's when I told her we had been trying for 2 years. And after a particularly difficult round of testing, I decided in 2015 I was either getting pregnant or I was getting a puppy. We didn't get the news we wanted, so that's when we got Zoe, and that's why I met Cheryl. Ironically, Zoe turned out to be my husband's soul dog, but we both needed her just the same. Cheryl was so incredibly supportive of our infertility. It took us another 2 years. So I was even doing some treatment shots on one of our trips, and I'm so grateful she lent me a listening ear and advice when I truly needed someone in my corner. When she was undergoing a screening for breast cancer, she called me, and I walked around Target for probably an hour talking with her about the potential results and how scared she was because she had so much left to do. I hoped I helped her feel at ease the way she did for me. She came to visit Zoe as often as she could, and she would, of course, stay to see me and Nick and the kids too, but I think we all know that Zoe was the draw. It just so happens that my daughter Hannah is 2 weeks older than the biggest joy of Cheryl's life, her beloved Carson. Carson became Cheryl's entire personality. I think that's what the kids are saying these days. She adored that little girl and would do just about anything for her. Dress her up for Halloween in any costume that she wanted, and let her do her makeup and bake cookies and karaoke. And let me just tell you, my daughter got a karaoke machine this Christmas, and I have to say, God bless Cheryl. She took her everywhere, small places like the library and the playground, and big places like New York City. And back on that trip, the one where she found out Courtney was pregnant, she was gushing. She asked me if I thought Craig and Courtney would maybe let her take the baby on a little outing every year. The first year, when she turned 1, maybe to Paws Farm. And the second year, I don't remember now, but it was a plan, and she dreamed about all the things she would be able to do with Carson, even before she was here. Our visits decreased over time. I had Hannah, COVID hit, I was pregnant with my second baby. We had 4 dogs, 3 adults, 2 kids, and a partridge in a pear tree. My house was shrinking, and no Airbnb could accommodate us. I became busy with the kids, and driving to New Jersey on a whim wasn't as easy as it used to be. But that didn't mean our connection ever went away. She called me on my birthday to sing. Her family had a tradition. When it was your birthday, you got sung an endless supply of songs. It starts with happy birthday, and then I think there's She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain, and it ends with She's a Jolly Good Fellow, and then just when you think it's over, there's another song to be sung. It made her laugh by the end of it, and secretly I love that she thought of me as family enough to sing it to me too. She kept a calendar of important dates, and she always remembered my husband's cancerversary and would call him or text him congratulations on another year cancer-free. There are so many anecdotes and stories I could tell about her, like the time she got pulled over coming out of Philly because she didn't have her headlights on. And she insisted to the police officer she was innocent. She had just had her car serviced, and the car place must have turned them off. He helped her turn them back on and let us go, but I'm sure he was thinking, lady, can't you tell your headlights aren't on? Or the time she took me to the fancy food show in New York City and made me stand next to the olive stand, knowing how much I hate olives, just so she could take a picture of my disgusted face next to it. Now, this is an ode to Cheryl, so I will not be sharing the details of the time she made me laugh so hard I peed my pants in public. But just know it did happen and everyone could tell. After that incident, she would ask me if I had to pee before telling me something she thought I would laugh about. And now we're all even because you have my embarrassing story. She mailed us packages every holiday, and every year we'd get a box with empty rolls of tape, toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls. She knew Zoe went nuts for them. Zoe rolls over them like they're her prey, and she buries them in the couch cushions. Of course, everyone gets something in a Cheryl box. Chocolates for us, a stuffed Be Like Henry dog for my son. This year, a scrunchie with little paw prints on it for Hannah. It's just who she was. She always remembered us. This year, when I got that box, I texted her, kind of in jest, that I was going to bury Zoe with a roll of tape. We both agreed it would be many, many years from now. She said she would happily provide that last roll of tape for my Zoe. Luckily, the tape rolls hadn't been shredded from this year's batch, so I pulled one aside, and I'll be sure Zoe gets her last roll of tape from her Grandma Cheryl. It's a small bit of salve on a giant wound. I always thought we'd be calling each other when it was time for our dogs to cross the bridge. The pain of losing Cheryl will never go away. But maybe the pain of saying goodbye to Zoe will be a little bit less, knowing she'll be waiting for her on the other side with a roll of packing tape. Cheryl's death is so untimely. I'm still in shock, and I think a lot of us are. In the last few days, we've had a lot of action within the Be Like Henry community. Her friend Debbie Noon created a group called Be Like Cheryl, and I think we could all be a little bit more like Cheryl, more kind, more compassionate. Do something that lights a fire under you. It doesn't have to be a whole nonprofit. But how could you give back? What could you do in your community to make a difference? We lost Cheryl, a true gift in this world. But if all of us came together, her spirit and enthusiasm can live on in our actions. Cheryl, you meant so much to my family. I'll always be grateful for the long drives we took, the adventures we shared, even at dark 30 and before I was caffeinated, and the many, many laughs we had. You were one of a kind, one of the most generous, hardworking, loving, and compassionate people I've ever known. I am so grateful for our friendship. I wish we would have had many more years of laughter to look forward to. I will love you forever and miss you always. I was honored to have Cheryl as my dear friend. Many of us were. Whether we knew her as a neighbor, a foster for dog rescue, a force of nature who ran Be Like Henry, a mentor, a volunteer with the Fox Chase Cancer Center, or a die-hard Eagles fan. Go Birds. Or one of the many other ways she impacted this world. But the titles she cherished the very most were sister to Ellen and Joel, mom to Stacy, Craig, and Courtney, and Henry and Gabby, and the most cherished of all, woof woof to her precious Carson. I'll leave the roast for later.
Thank you, Laura. And finally, I'd like to ask Craig to come up.
Do you want to stand next to me? Do you want to be on the stool? Okay, go on over. So at my previous job, there was a philosophy called eat the frog. And eat the frog means that you start your day and you eat a frog, and then after that everything is better. And the idea was you do the hardest part of the day first, and then it makes the rest of the day improve. So the way that I think this is going to go right now is I'm going to eat the frog, I'm going to break down, and then I'll make a miraculous bounce back and finish the rest of this thing, because the hardest part is talking about her, and so I'm going to do it first, maybe step away for a second and then come back. So when Carson knows the most about anything that goes on in Pliskin Plaza, she's the one that wrote or guided me in writing the directions for what to do with the dogs. She's the one that knew how to make the bows for the veterans. She's the one that knows the routine. She's the one who knows where all the stuff was located. And I don't think I fully realized how much Carson really was my mom's grandchild until now. The hardest part of the process is knowing that she should have 20 more years. Everything that doesn't involve Carson is easier. This will be a shock to everybody in this room, but when I was from the age of birth to like 8 or 9, I didn't have a dog. We didn't have one. I didn't have a dog as a kid. Probably very surprising. But one of the things is that the relationship with your parents evolve. And at the start, it's about instilling values. And we kind of grew up in a sort of moralistic, legal sort of household. Obviously, there was Judaism. You know, I was bar mitzvahed and confirmed, but clearly we're here at Saturday at noon. So that wasn't the centerpiece of the training. It was about living your life properly. So here are some of the things that I remember that my mom taught me. One of the first things she used to say to me a lot was, if it's wrong when I'm there, it's wrong when I'm not there. So you're supposed to do what's right, and if you don't, there's a consequence. And one time I was at the Lineberg's house, and they weren't, and that's the next door neighbor, and Lance is right there, so shout out to this day. And this is one of the first times that we had like a boy-girl party, you know, like a real one. And we were probably 16, and oh no, you're looking at him like that, but you know this story. So what happens is one of the girls actually decides that we're going to do shots of vodka and then replace the vodka with water. And she's now in the Secret Service, so that was going to work. And so we do that, and we get back the next day. I feel guilty because if it's wrong when I'm there, it's wrong when I'm not there. And I tell her. She then tells, I called my neighbor Aunt Renee, and of course everybody got in trouble. I was the snitch. And there's consequences to your actions. And for the next 5 years, I was never invited to the spin the bottle games in the neighborhood. I would like to think it was that and not the teeth and braces and hair, but you know. Another thing that my mom taught me was you're a man of your word. She also tried to tell me not to gamble, but it didn't work. One time I was a little kid, probably 9, so 1991. Michael Jackson is a very important pop figure in this world. We're driving and we're listening to WOGL, and ABC 123 comes on. ABC 123. And she says, "You know who sings this song?" I said, "No." She says, "Michael Jackson." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." "No, okay." "I'll bet you." "Okay, what do you want to bet?" "If you get this wrong, you have to wash the kitchen floor on your hands and knees until you go to college." "Oh, yeah? Well, what do I get if I win?" I don't remember. It was probably something dumb like $100 at the baseball card nook. And I washed the floor. There's this little yellow bucket, water, ammonia, and a sponge, hands and knees from 9 to 18 once a month. I went to one parent-teacher conference in high school. It was for keyboarding because I had an 88. And my mom felt, even though she didn't say it this way, you hear people say it is what it is. It is what it is. She would say that's an excuse to not take action. So she brings me up to Miss Kaplan's class, and she says to Miss Kaplan, "Why does Craig have a B?" And she said, "Well, he's not a very good at typing." That was the end of she said, "Okay, I'll take care of it." Every day for the next 3 months until I had a 97 or higher, I had to type the Philadelphia Inquirer for 45 minutes when I got home from school. My mom also taught about the importance of the emphasis on precision. You need to be precise with things. No grammar mistakes, no spelling mistakes. Those were not a thing that would be permitted. In fact, I made a typo in the post about this event today, and I was told about it by multiple people. In a very polite way, but still, your mom would, kill you if it said live steam forever on her Facebook wall. Okay, I'll add the R. In fact, she believed in this so much that as a child, that's the way I got dessert. I had to find the spelling mistakes on the menu. If you're wondering, back then, before spell check, it was pistachio and raspberry. Stacy got it lucky because she knew what to guess from me doing it, being 3 years older than her. She had a shirt that said, "Does anal retentive have a hyphen?" I spelled retentive wrong while typing this and changed it, even though no one will see these notes but me. She also taught the value of money. When I was younger and my dad changed careers and we started to have a little bit of money, I could then get my first pair of Nikes. And my mom said, "I'm not spending more than $40 on a pair of shoes. If you want to buy them, you pay the rest." When I got here the other day to pay for the arrangements in this building, they've, like a lot of businesses, they've included the credit card fee where it's 2.5%. So I went to the bank and got cash because I could do this event on a Saturday and probably be okay whenever I ran into my mom again. could probably cremate her instead of burying her and break 2 Jewish laws at once. Paying that credit card fee? Nope. That. Another thing that my mom taught me was acceptance of others. When I was young, she used to tell stories about her life in Center City, Philly. And back then, and I don't know what it's like now because I don't live here, but back then I guess there was a very large homosexual community. And so the only thing I knew about gay people is that they had the best parties. I didn't learn about that different until I was older. I remember in high school, a few of my friends came over for an Eagles playoff game, and she said, they came in, oh, good to see you, always hugs and kisses on the cheek, you know. Oh, you guys want pizza? And as she's asking, she gets to the third guy who is high out of his mind. Eyes are red. Did she realize, looking at him, she said, never mind, I'll get 2. She was the chaperone for my trip in elementary school to the Statue of Liberty. And she had 3 tickets, one for me, one for her, and one for the third guy, and the third guy happened to be African American. And so the person taking the tickets is like, well, who's the third one for? And she looked him straight face. She's like, well, for my twins. And she said, she taps him on the head like this and says, this is Arnold, and this is Danny. And so that's how Derek Jackson got to be Arnold for the next 12 years. So he got to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I got to be Danny DeVito, which I thought was very unfair. But she called Derek Arnold for 30 years. Probably the best one for me, though, the one that I hold dear even as I move into adulthood is there's a kid that was in the neighborhood, and we'll call him, I don't know, Brett, because that was his name. And so it would be very common that on the weekend I would open the door to go somewhere, and Brett would be sitting on the porch reading the newspaper. It's like, geez, okay, all right, easy, Brett. And I'd be like, all right, Brett, come on in. And every time my mom would make him French toast. And Brett was sitting on the porch because Brett was kind of like maybe like Bart Simpson or Dennis the Menace, neighborhood kid. He was the one that teachers didn't really want in the class. He could kind of, be mean to some of the kids. He was a little rougher around the edges. And one day I went over to his house, and I got there, and the dogs just had newspaper that they could poop on, and there was no food in the house. And I realized that my mom took care of Brett because she realized that she was probably the only parent that would do it. And so she never judged him harshly. She just took him in and, come on in, Brett, let's get some French toast. And, so those are kind of the key things. If it's wrong when I'm there, it's wrong when I'm not there. Be a person of your word. Don't settle. It is what it is. It is just an excuse. Be precise. Understand the value of money and be accepting of others. But then, of course, as you go and transition to adulthood, your relationship with your parents change. And so I'm going to teach you, if you don't already know, one of the expressions of the youth from 2023-24, standing on business. You may have heard of this. You could drop that one in there later. It's still not to the point where it's like cringeworthy if you say stand on business. You could still like slide it in and be cool, but it's running out of time. And what standing on business means is handle your affairs without backing down or being unyielding. It's a modernized way of saying mean what you say and say what you mean type thing, right? Staying on business, you get it done, right? As I was sitting there, I realized that there's probably not a lot of people that at their service will have their divorce attorney, their contractor, their lawyer, their investment person. I don't know, is there a realtor here? And so, but with the standing on business idea, what's interesting about it is it was made very popular by Drake's album, which is called For All the Dogs. And so as an adult, I learned, kind of how to stand on business, right? So how is it that you always make sure that you handle your affairs without backing down? How do you do what you say and say what you mean? So one of the things I learned was don't accept what the first person tells you, and you better see it in print. So an example of that, we went to Disneyland when we were, I don't know, I was like 16 maybe, you were like 13, whatever. And the city of Anaheim lost power. And my mom goes up to the cashier, and 20 minutes and 4 people later, she gets refunded. And we go to leave, and there's now lines of people waiting to get refunded because they saw her in line. And so you just make sure that if someone tells you something, you don't accept it at face value. I want to see it in print. And that's something that, of course, as a principal of a school, that's important. A lot of policies, and people say, this is the way we always do it. Well, why? It's probably stupid. So you got, that's part of standing on business. Sorry, I said that S word. I apologize. My mom and I share being extremists. I one day decided I was kind of getting fat, so I should take up running, and I did a marathon. She wanted to help dogs and became a full-time dog foster. I went from never golfing as recently as 2020 to playing 100 rounds in 2024. She wanted to raise money and created a 6-figure nonprofit from dust. It's just good both of us were too afraid to do recreational drugs. Another way that you stand on business is no matter how big or small, you just be fully devoted. I used to coach the 7th grade girls C-team basketball in a suit and a tie. She used to pull all-nighters year after year to grow her business. I run a 300-person high school in a district where the other high schools have 3,200. I'm a small little speck, but I still go to those principal meetings and walk around like I belong, whether I do or not. She has had to fight with PayPal and the state for tax exemption status, and I found on the printer, when I printed this, her application to PSE&G to be a neighborhood partner, and I got the email 2 days after she passed that she had gotten accepted. So Be Like Henry will be a PSE&G neighborhood partner. And then, I don't remember if I said this at the beginning, but at the end I'm also going to break down, and we'll get through that, even though it's kind of on the internet forever, so good for live streaming it. The last thing is that she taught me to love deeply and shamelessly. I come across like a cat, especially to people I meet in my adulthood, but I'm secretly a dog. She's obviously a dog. We're both viciously loyal, but can have a surprisingly sharp bite. We both do anything for our people and can be trusted and dependable. We share our love for the Eagles, our extended family, and our children. My hope for myself, wife, and child is that we can impact the lives of others in the way that she did, because that would be a life worth having lived, even if it ended too soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I'd like to read the following poems as if Cheryl were here now. If she were here, I think she might say to all of you, "Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took God's hand when I heard God call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. I found that place at the close of day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah, yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I savored much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your heart and share with me. God wanted me now. God set me free. I think Cheryl might also say, do not stand at my funeral and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the soft, gentle autumn rain. And in the quiet morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of birds in ever-circling flight. I am the soft starshine at night. Do not stand here today and cry. I am not there. I did not die. And finally, I think Cheryl would want us to remember her in this way. This is a poem entitled Afterglow. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when my life is done. We're now going to conclude our service here today with the traditional Jewish prayers, even though, as Craig said, it is Saturday. So I would ask everyone to please rise. The first is called El Mole Rachamim. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Cheryl Pliskin, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The Lord is her portion. May she rest in peace. And let us all say together, Amen. I'm now going to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. And anyone can feel free, if you know it, to say it along. Yit Gadal v'yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma divrach Yerute v'yamlik malhute, B'chayechon uvyomechon ufaye decho Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivarach Li'alam Olmaye Olmaya. Yit Barak V'yishtabah V'yit Parar V'yit Ramam V'yit Naseh. V'yit Adar V'yit Ale V'yit Alal Shmei Dekudesha B'rihu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirhata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Da'miran bi'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, Ve'hayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Ose Shalom Bimromav, Uyase Shalom, Ase Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Just a few announcements before we conclude. The family will be receiving guests at Cheryl's home, 82 Boothby Drive in Mount Laurel, today following our service, and also on Sunday and Monday as well. The family also respectfully requests that contributions in Cheryl's memory be made to Be Like Henry, and you can visit our website or go to belikehenry.org if you'd like to make a contribution. Once again, I would like to thank you all for joining us here today to honor Cheryl Pliskin's life. My fervent wish is that her memory will continue to be a blessing for all those whose lives she has touched. And I'll leave you with this final thought. The ones we love are never gone from our hearts. They visit us in old stories. They meet us in our dreams. They show up in a song or maybe a familiar face. They speak to us in moments of decision, in times when we know they'd be proud. They live on in the good things we do for the world and for each other. And they're here to gently remind us every time we miss them how much we were loved and always will be. This concludes our service here today. Please take care and be well. And most importantly, take care of each other. Thank you so much.